If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free, and you guessed it, it's free. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in just one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Pieces of a Nation.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet
Finally.
you.
Yeah.
How's everything going?
Oh, awesome. Seriously awesome. How is everything on your end?
Doing good. You know, my kid was just going a little berserk. So it's almost his nap time. So usually when it gets close to his nap time, he kind of goes a little crazy. So my wife is taking care of him.
Oh, how old is he?
He is 3 years old.
Oh, cutest age.
Do you have kids?
No. I'm single.
Oh.
I don't think I will have human kids.
Oh, really? You're gonna have Android kids?
I'll have cat kids. I think I have one already.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you again for agreeing to come on to this the podcast. We're gonna have a lot of fun today.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Let me introduce you really quickly, and we'll get into it. Sound good?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. To Pieces of a Nation listeners, welcome back today. The podcast. This is the podcast that makes you feel stuff. My name is Richard Chu. First of all, please follow us on Instagram at Pieces of a Nation. And while you're at that, please subscribe, rate, and review our show because it would really help us out. So today we have a very, very amazing guest that shares something that, you know, we share something really, really like sort of ingrained in our hearts together. And, you know, we met each other on a Facebook group on the Maladaptive Facebook group. Her name is, let me know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Cara Altintas. Is that correct?
I was thinking the second part will be harder, but the first part was harder for you. Chala Altintas.
Oh, Chala.
Yes.
Chala Altintas.
Yes, Chala is fine. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. Actually, I have little idea why you invited me, except from Maladaptive Daydreaming.
Yeah.
So,
well, essentially, Chala is Chala, right?
Yeah,
I'm gonna butcher your name.
No,
Great.
Perfect.
Chala.
Yeah.
Well, Chala is a psychologist from Turkey. Although she doesn't consider her a clinical psychologist, she does. Yeah. She does fully understand the science and the art of psychology, which is something I wanted to talk to her about. Yeah, right. She's also she's also a promising author and maladaptive daydream activist, I would say. Right?
Yeah, I guess so. We are trying to improve the people's understanding of it. So I guess it could be considered as an activism. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maladaptive daydreaming. I mean, we both know what it is, but you know, I like to get your sort of definition of it, just so the listeners understand what maladaptive daydreaming is. Could you do that for us?
Yeah, sure. Maladaptive daydreaming is a term for basically if we have to say it very simply, it's the behavioral addiction of daydreaming. And it creates its own problems. It creates its own pit that you cannot climb out. It has some components such as depression usually accompanies it, and a very deep sense of dissociation. You know, you don't want to be in this reality, and it shows itself in behavior, as in talking to yourself or imagining things for hours on end, trying not to be on people's eye at this. So you lock yourself in your room and while walking or, doing some repetitive movement that deepens the trance and makes you really feel the daydreams effects, both sensory and emotionally. You live them basically. So you waste hours and hours daydreaming and you don't want to socialize. Therefore, you are starved in social area. Therefore, depression deepens and you feel more need to daydream. And it creates a vicious cycle just like this. There are some other problems, including focusing, attention problems, most of the time, low self-esteem because of the um, lack of control in this situation, because the urge to daydream is very high. But I consider the worst part of it is hopelessness and hatred for reality, because every time something interrupts it, you feel great resentment towards reality. And um, especially those are the people that depends on you or your responsibilities. Whenever you let them down, you feel worse, and on and on and on.
I know there's so much to this. You mentioned like hopelessness. I mean, it's very true as a maladaptive daydreamer. We'll call it MD for short, because there's a lot of syllables. But as an MD, a person that struggled through it for over 20 years, I found, I'm finally realizing what I was going through. And realizing, oh, this is why I was stuck in my room all this time. This is why I was watching so many movies to get away. This is why I was getting so much anxiety, in a room when I was talking to people. Even though it seemed like I didn't, I put on this front, but within me, I had to really, really fight these off, right? For you, how long did you struggle with this? When did you realize this, and how did you overcome it?
My story is a little different from the current MDers, I think, because at my time there was no name for it. So even though I looked for help, there was no one confirming that I have a problem, and there was no help, therefore. So we should point this out for the listeners, I guess. Maladaptive daydreaming is a term coined in 2002. And until the last few years, no one, it hasn't grown in popularity in a way, because it was just on a paper that was at the corner somewhere. But later on, when people got heard of it, they heard of it and they said, this is what I have. Please do something about it. And every day more people are coming to psychologists and all of that. And Elise Omer, who found this, named this, who coined the term, to continue their research and put this in DSM, in the diagnostic books for professionals. But since it's not there, most of the professionals has no idea what it is. It's not there yet. So when you go to a therapist, they just say daydreaming is normal. Everyone does that. And I go, do they do it like 8 hours a day? So
do they pretend to be the characters in their head 8 hours a day?
I mean, yeah, kids do that, but it shouldn't have carried with adulthood in what's expected. I mean,
well, I guess it depends on what career path. I'm an actor, so I guess it's just a natural thing.
So. And I'm a writer, so whenever I'm imagining things, the plot, I take this side, and then this side I might be talking to myself. I have an excuse. So, but that's the point, isn't it? When you give it a meaning, it's not abnormal behavior at all. It's just a part of your creation process. But when in this society where we are expected to always act like this, do like that, we are just ignoring all the different kinds of people, different ways that mind works, and it turns into a problem. Anyway, I was supposed to talk about myself, right?
Yes, you make a good point. First of all, I just want to also add to, the term was coined in 2002 by Eli Sommer as a professor at I think at the Halim University,
Haifa.
Thank you, Haifa University.
In Israel.
So in Israel, right? So yeah, how did you overcome this?
Yeah, it became very intense when I was 13. That's the point. All of the MDers have strong imagination from childhood. So that's not unexpected at a child to do those things. And when I was 13, it became an urge to continue stories all the time. Even when I was in school, trying to listen to a class, it just overrides, your attention. And when you wake up, the school is over. Oh my God, what happened? It was a bit scary at the times when it got out of my control in the beginning, but later on, at least I did. I kind of surrendered it because it's so much fun. It's better than life because you have unbelievable control over that world, and you can live anything you want and feel, everything you want with your control. But later on, as I grew up, moved to high school and all, things started to get, out of my control more and more every day.
Right.
I was already an introvert, so that wrecked my understanding of the world. But in a second year of high school, I think, I started writing, and I realized it was even more fun when I wrote. So there was a time, at the first time I was starting to learn writing and all, starting to turn it into a production. No. What's the word?
Publication?
A process.
A process.
Yeah, a process of creating something, creation process. Yeah. That year, I don't remember anything about my life. I completely lost that year. I have no idea what happened that year. I remember here bits and pieces. I come to my senses. It's 3 a.m. I still have a uniform on me. I haven't eaten, and I have to go to sleep because there is school next day. So quickly, I take care of my needs, vital needs, and then sleep. Still dream my story, even as I'm sleeping. And I wake up, and the next day is lost again. Nothing stayed from that year. But I was so happy.
Yeah, some people call that being in the zone, right? But
yeah, I was though.
Right?
Writing. I was writing a story, so I was in the zone. And I physically wrote it. I have that notebook right there. I wrote it all in my hand. My finger was crooked at the end of it.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're right. Like MDers do have an extremely active imagination to the point where when an MDer dives into that world extensively and really commits themselves to that world, it can be really challenging to come back out or not wanting to come back out. Right?
Why would you? Why would you?
Exactly. Because it's so awesome in that world, right?
Yeah.
So do you remember like how MD was triggered in your life? Because some people get it through trauma. Actually, I think most people get it through trauma. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
no.
No,
I
no.
mean,
Okay.
the research says otherwise. At the first times that it was coined, the term maladaptive daydreaming, Elie Sommer found it in trauma survivors because that's what he worked on. I mean, he was working on trauma survivors all the way, you know. And so that's the pattern he recognized, and he theorized that it was due to trauma. But later on, new research showed that it's just 1 in 4. 1 in 4 people with MD has trauma history. That's the same rate with all of the population. So we must say it's not about trauma. So they did more research and found out that it's all about absorption ability and daydreaming. You know, when you daydream, you can experience those things in a way. You can just dive in that, be in the zone. That's they define it as a trait, an ability that most people don't have. So when you have that, it's always a pit you might fall unless you can you use that in the right way, because it's so rewarding. And when you're a child, when you have nothing to do, when you're bored or just ignored as a child, and that's where you go, and it might just ruin your life when it is not a good technique to cope with life in the future.
Right.
but
right.
but of course trauma makes it worse. Trauma makes everything worse. So
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I mean, for me, it started when I was 8 years old. I experienced pretty intense psychological trauma, right?
Mhm.
And from that point, it just went into this whole different world. And like I said, it took me a very long time to realize what this was. And finally, when I realized it, I just had to make a decision for myself to change this. Right?
Mhm. Yeah.
How did you change this in your life? How were you able to take control of it?
Oh, before I answer that, I should comment on the trauma we call quote unquote, is what the technical definition the science gives you. But you know physical abuse or sexual abuse and all of that, they put those things under the name of trauma. But those doesn't have to be the only things that distress you as a child. So we all have difficult lives when we are a child for some reason. For me, it was my own mind's call. It was a difficult childhood in a way, but it's not a traumatic. It's not traumatic, but that doesn't mean we didn't perceive difficulty that we needed to cope. So if anyone out there listens this and trying to, no, I had trauma. Yeah, if you say so, you do. Okay.
That's true.
Yeah. And how did I cope with that? When I was in university, everything just went, what's that called? The worst way they can go. Everything. I was usually a good student until then, but at that time, I was so overwhelmed with problems in my life that I was faced, with everything. So I had multiple nervous breakdowns. I had physical illnesses accompanying mental problems, which is usually the case. And it took me 7 years to complete a 4-year degree. I would like to say it was fun, but no, it wasn't.
Right.
I was forced to face everything, and the I had chosen psychology for 2 reasons already. One of them was something is wrong with me. I need to find that out. The second was I need to understand people to write better. So I went there. I looked for daydreaming problems and all, and there was pretty much nothing in literature on this. Scientific literature.
Right.
It was just unrelated, basically. So I thought this was either unique to me, which was not very possible I think, because it was a very convenient pit to fall in for everyone. Then I thought it must be rare, so people didn't work on it. So I worked on it on myself. I learned to reshape my behavior. First, I learned to plan my day first, to make them not coincide with my responsibilities and needs. And I learned to postpone my needs, my urge to daydream, to confine it to a space I designated myself with my willpower. That wasn't easy at first. And then I started working on my other problems, because it was very clear that whenever I was stressed, instead of one plot line in my head, I had 2, 3, 4 different plot lines going through, because I knew that it was a stress reliever. It was very clear. Whenever I tried to stop it, it was hell. That was a clear sign as well.
Right.
And then as I got through my problems one by one, that urge to daydream started to disappear. And as I kept it confined to some hours, as I didn't do it too often, I was free from its spell that life is hell. Reality is hell. That's an illusion that it creates, because when you do the same thing for hours and hours and hours, even if you solve a puzzle, when you move your head, when you stop doing that, you see it everywhere. You see the puzzle pieces everywhere. You feel the urge. When you daydream, what you do is playing in a world where you have complete control over and everything. You do this, you don't like it, you rewind it, you change that detail, you make things fall into place. And when you stop that after hours and hours, you feel that urge to control still when you look at the world. So when you feel that once, it's fine. Twice, it's getting worse. Every time you come back to real life to face your reality, you feel this thing, lack of control. You feel the need to control. So it's of course, in time, your mind makes this assumption that life is not what I want. Life is uncontrollable, therefore not what I want, and it's bad. It makes me feel bad. That's why.
Right.
So when you are free of that spell, when you turn to life with a little, suspicion about your assumption that it is bad, you start to see things in a new light, more optimistic, more as they are actually. So as I see life better, as I contribute, as I, dive into life more free of heart, excuse my weird ramblings, because English is not my first language. So.
I totally understand what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, it really comes down to being in the present, and really resonating, and seeing things through your heart. You mentioned certain things about like having control, because it's so true. Being an MDer, you have the ultimate control, because the world is yours within you, right?
Exactly.
And obviously on the exterior world, it's a lot different. You have many different people that have different ways of thinking. You have to deal with certain things. You can't control the traffic. You can't control the weather, certain things like that, right? So it makes it a little bit more challenging, which always makes me think that there's a possibility that maladaptive daydreaming is such a natural thing for everyone when they're born, right? But some people don't know where to not cut the cord, but pause it to come into the real world, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. Certain people come into my mind, like, for instance, I wonder I wonder if people like Steve Jobs, for instance, right? Now he was a very controlling person, and but he also had a highly active imagination, and I wonder if there was an essence in him where he,
Yeah.
let's say theoretically he was an MDer, but he decided to take what was inside his mind and his world, and he fought to really, really make it the outside world, like push the boundaries, if you will.
It's the same energy, it's the same force in us, but I don't think it's about control. I'm not sure. I think it's about fear. I mean, yeah, everyone wants control. That feeds fear and all of that. That's fine. But fear comes to such a degree in MDers because of the, when you come back, it feels bad, and it just creates its own urge and all that. It just comes to a point that you are afraid of life. I mean, whatever happens to you feels bad at that point. So that's why the suicide rates are appalling in MDers. Actually, I think 1 in 3 people has suicide history, and these are the people that survive that. I mean, amazing rates. And they are so afraid of life. They are so afraid of, socializing, for example. Someone will decline you. That's hell for them. They will get into some job and fail that at some point. That's hell for them. They didn't even live that, and they have such a strong imagination. They just imagine that, and it feels worse. In your mind you keep creating this understanding that life is scary and awful and all of that. So if Steve Jobs had it, I would be that's not the problem with the imagination and all of that energy. The problem is that fear. That's what we need to pathologize, not the imagination itself. And I know that, I am pretty sure that Tolkien had it at some point, even if not maladaptive. He had it to a degree that made his life difficult and question himself, because he has this story called Leaf by Niggle, and that's an autobiographical story. Everyone says that, the Tolkien experts and all of that. And you can see that that's a story about a painter, and all he loves to do is paint. Every time his neighbor disturbs him, he feels resentment, but he just grits his teeth and does what the world wants him to do. And every time he comes back to his painting, no one understands the value of it, why he loves it, and he asks himself, am I doing the right thing, investing my time in this? Is this helpful to anyone but my pleasure and all of that? And you can see him asking these questions to himself. And in the end, the character dies and goes to heaven, and they judge him according to this, and he is found worthy of heaven. And when he goes to heaven, he sees the tree he painted in real life. This is the dream of every MDer. This is exactly what an MDer would write, or an immersive daydreamer. We call the healthy daydreamers like this, with absorption, immersive daydreamers. They are not in need of help or pathological or anything. So this is a component that we need in all of the creative people, all of the creative process. Not the only creative process, but it's absolutely very fitting for creative process, this ability. And when it goes haywire, when you don't use it right, when it just creates its own problems, that's maladaptive daydreaming. And we can adjust that, it just needs a little touching here and there, maybe in individual level, but we also need a society where creativity is not punished anymore. We have that right now. We are not welcome in economical level, or in people's hearts about usefulness and all of that. If you look at maladaptive daydreaming, dreamers most uh, problematic as they find aspects, that's like speaking to themselves, because they think that makes them insane. That's insane behavior. But everyone does that in their own homes. They think they are alone. They think they are abnormal, but everyone does that. Even the most healthy person does that, speaks to themselves, but that alarms them, because we don't have role models for these kind of people. Everyone just shows a desirable face on Instagram. That's all. We don't trust each other with our vulnerabilities or anything like that. So they think they're alone, but they are not. They think they're abnormal. They're not. These behaviors are not the problem. Your pain is the problem. We should handle that part. But most of the time on consultations, I waste most of my time trying to persuade them, you are not, insane. This is not insane behavior. I've seen that it's not insanity. So
Right.
change of
Yeah,
perspective is vital in that.
Yeah, I mean, I find that to be true, that many people do mumble to themselves or talk to themselves.
When they remember something funny, they laugh. When they remember something sad, they cry.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we're in this society, we're forced to really keep our creativity down. But then there are people that can't help but to constantly create. Right. It's not about creating for the money. I mean, that's one part of it. That's an eventual part of creating, right? When you start to develop a fan base and people see value in your work, right? But if you're a natural creator, you can't stop creating.
Yeah.
That's a bottom line.
An urge. That's an urge that just makes you itch. You have to get it out, That's exactly the MD thing, you have the urge. But when you use it to only, pacify your needs, if you feel alone, you imagine socializing. If you feel, helpless, you daydream being a hero and all of that. That's just the pit, you make it useless. It's not useless. You just don't use it. You just make it worse. That's all.
Right. You're not creating any value with it. Right.
I mean, value is another thing, but it just creates its own cycle in that point. When you use it for that, when you use it for, pacify your needs, it's not helpful to anyone, including you. You just create the sense of dependence on it. So you don't learn how to handle life in real life. You don't learn how to socialize in real life. So you don't ever create that fullness in you. So it's just a pacifier. So you keep coming back to that problem. I say, they say if it worked once, you can use it twice, third time, fourth time. If you need to use it 4 times, it's not working. It's just postponing. You're escaping the problem,
Right.
A real solution must make it go away forever. I mean, at least for a very long time, that it doesn't come back to you all the time, So that's just escapism. That's just not facing reality. And that's the, lie of fear. Fear makes us see things where there isn't, and not facing problems. That's just what keeps us where we are. We just can't move on. We just can't grow up and all of that. But
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, that's the lie. That's really fascinating. I like how you put those words together. It sort of reminds me of this movie called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Have you seen
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did.
That's
It's definitely about MD. That's clear.
it totally is, right? It
Yeah.
totally is about MD. It's crazy. And it's one of those movies when I first saw it, I just thought, wow, that reminds me of me sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And I think the fears that we create for ourselves are the most biggest and inhibitors and obstacles for us to really jump to that next level. Because I mean, when I realized what I had 6 years ago, and I decided to change it, everything came into place. Like for instance, certain things that I wouldn't even have known about came into my life so that I can use it as a tool to overcome it. Right. Yeah. And one of the biggest things that I understood was activity. I had to be active, constantly active, moving my body towards something, moving myself towards a certain goal, whether it was small or big. But in those days, I had to start. I had to start small, taking incremental steps towards something, and not be overwhelmed by this large Mount Fuji goal. Right? Yeah. Do you find yourself doing things like that? And the people that you talk to, do you find that they have trouble attaining certain things in their life in reality?
I mean, it's not about reality. Seriously, it's not about reality at all, because fear makes you feel a poor man while you are swimming in wealth. You just feel that lack of things because it lies to you. You don't even realize the reality. You are just locked in your own head, fearful of everything. This can happen, that can happen. Oh my God, this will happen. Because you think you know something about life, but you don't. It's an adventure in all of the aspects. Even these things we've been talking about, MD, is just just categorizations that we make trying to understand chaos. But you can make those categorizations like this or like that. It's like creating star groups. You can group them like this or like that. They are the stars. Those are the only facts you have. This person is in distress. We can group that like that. That's just arbitrary, all of that. And what was I saying? I'm sorry. I got lost.
You were.
but I was trying to say, when science says you are sick, you are broken, and all of that, that you should remember that that's not a fact. That's a someone says something, someone makes a categorization. That's all. That's not a fact.
Right. I mean, what I really want to clear up is by the term of reality, meaning, when we have our own sort of like fantasies and idea within us, right? We still have to deal with the outside world, and in terms of reality, I agree. I agree with you. There's certain things like ADD, ADHD that are created by man, right? Those are just terms created by man
in this society. You can't find a place to run away, but in I don't know, 500 years ago, you should have been a scout. Those people who felt the wanderlust and and all of that was just a natural part of society. Now it's not. Now we call it a sickness. That's it.
Right. I mean, they have to put it in a box. They have to put it in a box. They have to put everything in a box so that people can understand it, which I can fully understand why, because because in order to understand somebody, you sort of have to categorize them. But what becomes the biggest limitation is when you categorize them and you can't think outside of the box.
Yeah,
That's
when you
all,
forget that it's an illusion. That category is an illusion. You just created that. You fooled yourself into it. Yeah.
Are you familiar with T. Harv Eker?
No.
Okay, so he's an entrepreneur, and he's one of the entrepreneurs that I really studied because I felt like he understood so much about creating your own reality, right?
Mm.
And here's a story that he gave this sort of like breakdown on what reality is, creating your reality. And so a reporter had asked him, what does he think about the current state of economy? And his answer was, whose economy? Your economy or my economy? Because those are two different things. Because your economy sucks, but my economy is prosperous and abundant, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that line that we like he understands.
It's all about perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Isn't that really what everything that we're talking about? At least I feel. Look, I don't have the full understanding of maladaptive daydreaming yet. I'm still really trying to understand it. But what I do understand are the things that help me overcome it, like the things that I've used to overcome it. Right. Mm-hmm. And I still
How
use
did you overcome it? Yeah.
I started just taking movements, minimal movements. For instance, I would put notes on my wall to remind myself of certain things. I would set things on my timer to make sure that I wouldn't get lost in this trance, right? Because in my world, in my mind, I have a lot of things that I want to attain, right? In my mind, I already have them. But in the outside world, I've got to be able to materialize it. So that was the major obstacle for me. It was materializing something. So I started studying, books on how people started to take action more. Eventually, I realized I needed to really look at my time, really busy myself with things and express myself accordingly. When it comes out, it has to come out. Otherwise, it's just going to be repressed. And repression is energy, and repression is energy repressed, which is depression. So that causes depression, right? So. And then, I started practicing Buddhism, Nichiren Buddhism, and with that, it's a very active community. So I was able to put myself in a community that was always, you got to make causes, you got to constantly make causes for things to work. So I took all that and started implementing into my life. And for the past 5 to 6 years, so many things have materialized in my life, and there's still more. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot more, but the first year or two were tough because I had to re-till the soil, plant new seeds, the whole works, right? In order to harvest and have things to come into fruition. So those are the things I started doing, and I kept on doing it, and eventually. I'm here. I came to this point, and and I realized, wow, like looking back, looking back at, I just thought, wow.
It takes time. You don't realize at the moment, but you just move forward little by little, every time a step. Yeah, it's step by step. So you don't see yourself moving so far, but just give it time. Patience. But what I understand is that you've addressed the root problems. You saw your inactiveness and all of that, and then you found social support, and you found spirituality, and these just removed the need for daydreams, basically. I guess that's my understanding of it.
I mean, I still daydream, but I daydream
I
with a
do too.
purpose.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
daydream, right?
It doesn't hurt me anymore. It's not, it's not against me. I'm not severed. When I should explain this. People don't understand how my mind works on this. I realize that when a person is in pain, and or I don't understand which one comes first, and it doesn't matter. When people in pain, you can find their mind is also in pieces. And the worst cases are called personality, dissociative personality disorder. They have multiple personalities in one body. They are not united at all, and they have. I'm not talking about dissociative personality disorder here. People with severed minds, everyone basically, almost everyone. They make a decision. One parts of them makes a decision. The other part sabotages it. They try to make a decision, and both parts just argue in their heads. And most of the time, one of the pieces finds fuel from either fear or greed and something like that, something stupid like that, and they are locked in this fight in themselves. It's pretty much like a community. we are the same. In a country, there are groups of people, and they all have their own agenda. They don't come together. They don't watch for each other. They think they are different. They think they are separate. They're not, and they completely consumed. They're completely consumed in this bickering and have no idea what reality is.
I mean that's how cancers are formed sometimes,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. Cancer is exactly like that. It just a group of cells going on their own way against the body. The rest of the thing, you against me, they go. We are different.
Right. I mean, on a deeper level, the title of this podcast, Pieces of a Nation, is just that, what you just explained, where it's, on a bigger scope. Yes, it's about a nation or a world, and each of us are pieces, moving pieces to that world, right? But on a deeper level, it's really about yourself and all the little intricate parts in your mind, your body, your soul that have to deal with certain things in life in order to overcome things or just to be happy. I mean, that's really the basis. That's really the basis of life, is to be happy, isn't it?
Yeah. And it is locked in others, what you call others. As much as you love people, as much as you feel either in a community or a family, whatever you call it, when you reach to them, when they reach back to you, you become one again. You are happier. That's just nature in all of it. And and the funny thing is, the point there, what most people miss is being with those people without assimilating them, letting them be different from you and accepting them either despite that or because of that. You come together with other people because of what you lack, not because you want to be bigger. You come together for even in a body, different organs, they have different tissues, and if they were the same, we would all be a blob. Nothing complicated about it. We couldn't create these amazing things like science, or philosophy, arts. These are other living creatures at this point. They evolve in their own sense, and if you cannot form that from a uniform place, and that unity only comes from the difference. As much as you accept it, as much as you are accepted, you change according to each other's needs. That's when you find true next level, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, next level, like Albert Einstein, next level.
I guess so.
I have a deep feeling that Albert Einstein was MD, and he just blew through the roof. With his philosophies and the way he thought about things, I just thought, wow, that man was just, his imagination was just so amazing.
Yeah. There are accounts of him going blank, and when people ask what he's doing, he would say, I'm doing a mental experimentation. And he talks about images of riding a light ray, riding on it and moving with it and all of that. He has that image and all of that.
And there was no LSD back then too. So what do you have to explain about that?
Exactly.
Right. It's funny. You mentioned something about social media earlier, and I feel like social media, there's goods and bads about it.
Yeah.
But I think
like everything,
like everything, right? And I also believe that for MDers, it can be really consuming. We've all done this before. If not, then I'm the only one. But we've all fallen down this rabbit hole of information, or somebody's Instagram account, right? Because you get interested in somebody and you start diving into that, and an hour later you realize, I just went through 1,000 photos. Why did that's useless information in my head. Why did I do that to myself, right? It's insane.
Because you don't actually have control over that. Instagram is designed to make you do that. You don't have free will over that. It's just, will of the nature pushing you through that. Instagram is deliberately designed for you to do that. You have, I don't know how to call it, but you have some parts in your mind that is evolved over thousands of years that makes you prone to follow these kind of cues. You feel like, just one more click. You don't even think anymore. It just comes automatically. And then you question yourself, why did I do that? You didn't do that. You weren't there. It was just, an animal, an animal in you, just following the scent or something like that.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. It's mind manipulation at its best. And I love social media, and at the same time, I've had to create a
boundary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A boundary for myself, because
me too. Exactly.
Yeah. Chala, our time is almost up. I really love this conversation. I would love to. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you too. Yeah, it's great. It was a great talk. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I didn't even realize how much time passed.
I know, right? I know. Yeah. We're in the zone. I definitely want to follow up with you as time progresses, because I'm sure you and I both will have many more experiences and much more information to share. And I think this is a type of subject that will continue to grow, and people will start to become a lot more curious about it. So if you're open, I'd love to bring you back on.
That would be awesome.
Great.
I would be very glad to be back talking with you. That's nice.
Thank you. So if there's I usually like to close off the show with words of encouragement, right? And something from the guests, right? So if there is one thing you can say to any of the listeners right now, whether they're MDers or not, what's that one thing you would like them to really pull from you today?
Don't fall the traps of fear. It's lying to you. There is nothing to fear at all. I mean, at all. I have been a free person that I wasn't even capable of imagining since I've got rid of fear. And don't let the hopelessness fool you. that there is no way out. Life is just a battle. No, it's not. There is a way out. Just have that hope and don't fear anything. It's just, or don't listen it. Even if you feel it, don't listen it. It doesn't know anything. And grab the control of your life back in that way by giving up control. It's funny, but yeah.
Wow. I love that. I really, really love that. Do you have a social media where listeners can get in touch with you if they want to ask you about certain things, about whether it's psychology or MDing? Yeah. What's your social media?
I have a MD information platform. In a way, we call it Özgür Düş platform. It's OZGURDUS. You can put www at one and .com at other to find my website. And you can find information about me, about MD right over there, some frequently asked questions and a contact form. We also have the same accounts on Instagram, on Facebook and YouTube. We post videos every week and we make some workshops every week in the community of Turkey. If any Turkish listeners are here, they are always welcome. I would be happy to, be in contact with you, whoever you are.
Awesome. And the website link and the Instagram page is basically OZGURDUS platform, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, we'll do. Çağla,
thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you again. It's been such a pleasure. I'm so glad we connected, and I definitely want to continue this conversation down in the future.
Thank you so much.
Sweet deal. All right. Thank you so much.